Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Catch us live weekdays at 7 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Listen on demand wherever you get your podcasts or watch us live on YouTube.
For Ann Sonders of Charles Schwab, I'm not going to bury her with derivative questions.
Thank you.
And stop getting people on saying it's idiosyncratic when we know the opacity of the markets. In our youth, you were too young to remember this, Lizanne.
I doubt it.
Nobody used the word idiosyncratic.
No.
What does that word mean to you?
Nothing to see here, I think, in today's language.
Yeah.
One-off, but to continue to use idiosyncratic in the face of Diamond's comment about cockroaches, the short answer is we don't know yet.
2006, we just had on great guests, Chris Whalen, Ben Laidler. I'm sorry, it's like it's Jeremy Irons in Margin Call. We got to get out. We got to sell stuff that's 150 to 200 beeps higher yield than everything else. Behavior hasn't changed, Lizanne, has it?
It hasn't, but I think we're seeing yet another bifurcation, this time within the financials. And really it's been underway since the 2023 mini banking crisis, where you've kind of separated out the regional banks from the large banks. I think if there's any benefit to when this unfolded, Zions and Western Alliance, is that it happened in the midst of the larger bank earnings. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't surprise me to see some consolidation, which certainly happened in the aftermath of the 2023 crisis.
We're just kind of getting into the teeth of the earnings here today. The big banks seem to be really solid. And even with their rhetoric about their business and what they're seeing from their customer base, what did you take away from the big banks?
Well, I think the earnings season is important broadly, but particularly with the big banks in the absence of government-issued data, it provides a bit of a macro look that we can't get without getting a lot of that traditional government-issued data. So not only were the big bank earnings generally strong, but what they say about the health of the economy, the relative health of the consumer, I think gives a decent read into the broader macro outlook.
Since that April low, Lizanne, I mean, we've had the S&P up 35%, but the Russell 2000's up about 40%. What do you make of that? Well,
within the Russell, though, you have to look at the difference between the profitable companies and the non-profitable companies. So you got 57% of the Russell is profitable, 41% is not profitable.
I didn't know that.
Now, I know that doesn't add up to 100. There's 2% of the Russell that you don't have earnings data for whatever reason. And the non-profitable segment of the Russell's performance year to date is double what it is for the profitable. So there has been this down quality bias to what's been working. You see it at the basket level. You see it in terms of micro caps outperforming. That's where some of the speculative fervor has been most dominant. I think you want to fade the really low quality move within small caps and lean into higher quality.
Ann Sonders with Charles Schwab. She's working on this Friday. I assume Kathy Jones took the day off. I got price up, yield down 3.98%.
She deserves it.
On the 10-year yield. I want you to explain to our viewers and our listeners removed from this. They have a 401k. Either they miss the market, they're in the market. How do they protect themselves from the complexities of fancy Wall Street talk, credit loan obligations, this tranche, that tranche, the New York Rangers are their own tranche? Okay, how do you protect yourselves from Wall Street complexity?
So obviously you could take a passive approach and then you're locking yourself into the indexes. The problem there is that you've got such a concentration problem within the cap-weighted indexes that I think adds some risk. From an individual stocks perspective, continue to emphasize, factor-based investing and screening. And I think in this kind of environment, staying up in quality, focusing on, in an environment where there's some concern about valuation, focus on companies that have positive earnings trends, forward earnings revisions in this environment of worrying about whether there's more of these sort of debt blow-ups. focus on lower leverage companies, so better balance sheets, lower debt to equity, more reasonable valuations. It's almost like taking to use an old school acronym, a GARP approach.
Yeah, growth at a reasonable price, kids.
Nailed that.
Yep.
I thought it was the world according to GARP for like 20 years. Flunked that question on the CFA.
The entire city of Denver money management was based upon GARP.
That's a Janus thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Janus
all the money moved.
Schwab never bought. They never drank the Kool-Aid.
All the money moved from Chicago to Denver back in the day. So, Liz Ann, what's the concern here? When you go talk to your Schwab clients, what's their concern? Is it valuation? Is it that we've bounced back so much? Or are they just riding the wave?
The number one question I've been getting at client events is AI a bubble?
Ah, good one. Yep.
And even...
Boy, we got to 732, Tom, without mentioning AI today. That's got to be a record over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So
that is the number one topic. And I find at times there's a bubble in the use of the word bubble. It's, you are starting to see this speculation go outside cohorts like the Magnificent Seven, which may be a good thing in terms of sort of the hype cycle is now in these sort of micro segments of the market like quantum and drones and still in the meme stocks and non-profitable tech. But there's a lot of churn happening under the surface. We talk about the resilience of these indexes, but when you look at the Magnificent Seven, and I think it's reflective of some valuation concerns, the best performer among the Magnificent Seven, which no surprise is NVIDIA, but it's not even in the top 60 best performers in the S&P 500.
Really?
It's the number one contributor to S&P gains, but that's by virtue of its cap size.
Right. Yep. I got to get this in. 1 minute left. You're factor based.
Yeah.
Which factor now should our listeners and viewers focus on?
Right now, in this unique environment right now,
like to get to lunch.
Lower leverage.
Lower leverage. Interesting. You're going that way.
Yeah.
Interesting. How many stocks out of 500 categorizes Liz Ann Sonders lower leverage?
You got a stumper of a question. I don't know.
We'll talk to Kevin.
We'll talk to Kevin.
He would, he might know the answer. I'm not even sure he knows the exact number of S&P companies that screen well.
I mean, young Gordon has never seen a market like this.
Young Gordon has taken the day off today.
Wow.
So how are you going to do Twitter?
Notice how lower my chart output is on Twitter this morning. Nobody wants to see stick figures, which is how my charts would be if I had to create them myself.
20 seconds is cash and asset.
For some investors, and you're seeing the flight
come on, your general counsel gave you that answer. I'm in the market. I got a VIX at 24. Answer. Is a VIX at 24 an opportunity?
You tend to do better waiting for the major spike in VIX. And then if you want to trade it, which we wouldn't recommend, then trying to sort of catch it in the midst of a move higher or in the midst of a move lower.
Just got to get back to the office. Kevin's not there. Kathy Jones is, Liz Ann Sonders on this important day with Charles Schwab with wonderful perspective. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Surveillance coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
We're going to calm down right now. We've been in a CLO tranched frenzy all morning. And right now we're going to distill the Christopher Waller interview yesterday, one of the 5 or 6 candidates to be the next chairman of the Fed. And we're honored in studio. I wish you'd been there yesterday. Anna Wong, chief US economist at Bloomberg Economics. And we're just going to slow down now, folks, and talk about your future, your prosperity in our central bank. Anna Wong, more than qualified with her leadership in market economics over the last 2 years. So he dodged every question. He was a sport, actually, about it. A 4.x unemployment rate right now, that's not the same as a 4.x unemployment rate 30, 40 years ago, is it?
34 years ago, so that was about in the 1990s, right? And at that time there was a productivity boom, and also the natural rate of unemployment at that time, if I recall, is around 5% or something like that. And whereas the natural rate of unemployment, according to the Fed right now, is more like 4.2%.
So the unemployment rate we have now feels 5-ish. That's what the governor said.
Yes, exactly. So I think the mystery of last year is you look at non-farm payrolls adjusted for the overstatement, which we said would mean that payrolls is actually contracting negative in a couple months last year when the break even is over 200. So the unemployment rate should be rising to 5% according to all sorts of model. I think what it is that the unemployment rate also have some measurement problem last year. Because we do know that the new arrivals, new immigrants, their unemployment rate is over 12%. So if they are the over 14 millions of immigrants that arrived in the last 4 years are all counted in the household survey, I do think that the unemployment rate was actually trending toward, there was an inertia to trend toward 5% last year, if accurately measured.
But that's not what any of us see, and that's what. Does the Fed see that? Did they feel that? Did they understand that? And if so, that means they got to cut, right?
I think Chris Waller, he is a great economist because he doesn't take data dependency. Powell has said talk about data depends. He doesn't take data as gospel, because when you look at data,
we do here at Bloomberg.
Do
you think he's favored by Trump? If he's different than the others, is Waller the one that the president can be happy with?
I think Waller is a dark horse. And I think that if Trump gets to know Waller better, and this prolonged process is helping that, and they get to talk about wrestling. Waller likes this fighter. What is that?
Extreme fighting?
Exactly.
Oh, I should have brought that up.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Trump is going to host ex-fighter ring on Independence Day next year. So I think if they get to bond on those things, they will find that, in fact, Waller is a blue-collar governor who has a lot of common ground.
And I think that would be, that's where I was yesterday. Paul, can I ask one more nerd question?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to get this out of the way with Dr. Wong, because Paul's got more intelligent questions. I asked him yesterday, and he sort of kind of like answered it, given his public responsibilities. He wrote a paper in 91 off James Baker in Bashing, where the administration bashes the central bank. He divides it in the 1991 paper between a strong administration and a weak administration, and it has classic game theory in it of Robert Gordon and Barrow and the rest. Anna Wong, bring it over to 2006, and if we have bashing and coercion from any given administration, is the Fed constrained in their ability to go from data-dependent ex post out to being a little bit out ahead of the data? Are they constrained by bashing where they are solidly ex post?
That's a great question. I think right now Wall Street is already starting to suspect that the Fed is switching toward they have to be constrained from being forward-looking because they're afraid of being wrong, and hence the institution will be further coming under fire.
Paul, this is a loaded question. We hope Anna Wong and her team. Bashorn's in town, right? From Barcelona?
Yes.
Okay, have you guys been partying for 3 days?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Paul, pick it up here. She's with a guy from Barcelona.
Oh, no, that's trouble.
The nights are 2 a.m.
Yeah, they don't go to dinner till 10 o'clock.
Yes.
Anna, so the government shut down. You economists are not getting the data that you typically need and use. When the government does open and we start getting some of this data, how good is it going to be? Should we be concerned about the quality of the data?
Yes, very much so. So the problem with CPI, so September CPI is coming out next Friday, no problem.
Okay.
But the October CPI, well, we're halfway through October, not a single price quote has been collected. And so if this shutdown persists through the end of October, the entire month of October, the housing survey will have zero price quotes. And because of the quirks of the methodology in the housing survey, this means that the sampling error will persist until next May. Wow. So all throughout this period, the shelter inflation, it will be a total...
what you just heard there, folks, coast to coast and frankly worldwide, is Anna Wong, absolutely definitive. Can I ask the elephant in the room question? Sure. Have you been contacted by the administration to run BLS?
No, I have not.
Okay. I asked Lisa Mateo this morning if she'd been contacted. No, you've been not.
Yes.
We hope.
Yeah.
She's that good at it.
Exactly. So what's the next thing that we need to focus on from an economic perspective to get a handle on kind of where this economy is going?
Okay, so because of the shutdown and also persisting problems in BLS, the whole of Wall Street is coming up with alternative data, right?
Yep.
So we also have an answer. So in Bloomberg Economics, we have now collected online 38 million online prices, our little million price project. Yes, and we are trying to mimic the BLS methodology in processing these price quotes as possible. And so we have a pretty, I think we have a pretty decent picture of the inflation. And I think the key thing is doing exercises like this, because if you just process alternative data at face value, they are so noisy, and this, noise is everywhere, and signal is very few to be found.
Paul, get one more in here.
Where do I find this stuff? Have you published it?
We have been talking about it the last 3 days all over.
All right. So we're going to...
We will be writing about it.
It'll be on the terminal soon here. How do you think the cadence of Fed rate cuts will go here? How should we think about this?
Thank you, Paul. Yep. Perfect question. Waller, one single sentence, 100 to 125 beeps.
Nice.
Yes, 50 bips this year and 75 bips next year, which means 125 bips.
Within the nerd conversation we're having, what's it mean for our listeners and viewers who don't care about ex post ex ante? If Chairman Waller delivers 125 beeps of cuts, how does our life change?
Bullish 2026, inflation going above 3% in 2026.
President's
not going to like that.
Well, the president may decide that they need the Fed to hike in 2027.
Whoa.
I got 30 seconds. What's the key distinction between the PhD from Pennsylvania, Hassett, and the PhD from Washington State, Waller? What's the distinction between Hassett and Waller economics?
Hassett economics is very more econometrics, but Hassett is a very original thinker. Waller is also a pretty a grounded thinker. They have more in common than you think. They are both blue collar. Governor.
This has been brilliant. Yeah. You should party more. John from Barcelona. Anna Wong, thank you so much, driving all of our economics, and she has just been across the nation a world leader on the calculation of the American labor economy. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Surveillance coming up after this.
This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Listen live each weekday starting at 7 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. You can also listen live on Amazon Alexa from our flagship New York station. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Dan Ives of Wedbush is on the Pacific Rim. He'll be, dialing in. It's like a VPN dial-in.
Okay.
He's in Bangkok, and he's going to be watching it to Iowa City.
Yeah.
The University of Iowa plays a beleaguered Penn State. Should we get this out of the way?
Let's do that.
Before Tech Talk. Dan Ives, are you on the short list to be the new head coach of Penn State?
I am not. I mean, look, there's been talk. Sweeney could be up there, but I think it's. I think it's Sweeney, Urban Meyer, Joe Brady. I mean, that's the top three.
What is a school's reaction to all the money that's involved? I got to move on to tech, Dan Ives. We really appreciate making the effort from Hong Kong. But one more Penn State. Well, I'm going to do one, then Paul's got a smarter one than me. What's the reaction of State College, Pennsylvania, to the professionalism of the millions of dollars involved?
Look, it's been obviously massively disappointing, right, in terms of the season. And, that's why they had to make a move, in terms of Franklin. But I think it just comes down to, for a program like ours, like, we had to sort of rip the Band-Aid off and now find our next leader. And it's the reality of college sports today.
Who would you like, Dan? I mean, there's a lot of presumably qualified candidates out there. Who would you like to see?
I mean, for me, the top two, it would be Urban Meyer, because I think from a recruiter and in terms of big games and getting him back in,
right?
Yeah, I think he'd be a great fit. And then I think Joe Brady, offensive coordinator for the Bills. Yeah.
Mike from Long Island just emails in and says, get back on topic, Tom. Thank you, Mike, for that. He is in Hong Kong. Dan Ives with us here on the Moment of Technology. Dan Ives, Ann Sonders mentioned it in every meeting. It's AI. How does Dan Ives synthesize the AI frenzy, the plus and the minus right now?
I mean, look, I'm in Asia for the next 2.5 weeks. And to us, it's going around the region trying to understand what the demand looks like. Look, demand's accelerated 20, 30%. If I go back to 3-4 months ago, I mean, demand and supply for NVIDIA chips is 10 to 1. So to me, Tom, it's I just focus on what does demand look like on the chip side when it comes to the use cases.
Yeah.
I think 3Q earnings are going to probably exceed even the hype for AI.
And Noah Smith, Paul Sweeney, out yesterday, he's saying, forget about all the panic. The usage of AI right now is incalculable how it's increasing.
Yeah, we'll see. And Dan, I think what's maybe gotten some people's attention a little bit on concerned in the last 3-4 weeks has been some of these, what I think some people refer to as circular deals. NVIDIA investing in OpenAI and then going to be buying some NVIDIA chips. And we've seen a number of these deals, number one. Number two, they're huge dollar amounts here. What do you make of those types of transactions?
Yeah, look, I get some of the concerns and people who say parallels to the late 90s. I mean, I disagree in terms of vendor financing. The reality is, I mean, OpenAI, if you think about it, they'll put $1 in, and for every $1 they put in, they're going to get $15, $20 back, whether it's AMD or NVIDIA. So I view it much more as collaboratively building the next economy rather than some sort of circular financing sinister.
Right.
I mean, that's sort of my view in terms of as it plays out.
Dan Ives with us, and we continue on technology, and we, of course, we're discussing Penn State there. He is in Hong Kong. He'll listen to Penn State, Iowa, from Bangkok here tomorrow. It's an evening game. He'll be in the morning. It's like F1. You're up at ridiculous hours. Okay, Apple, Wedbush, Ives, 310 is the target. Here's the last targets on the ANR screen. 205, 220, Morgan Stanley sort of near Wedbush, Evercore ISI sort of near Wedbush, 277, 218, and a 203. Dan Ives, discuss the gloom around Apple.
I mean, the cab driver in Hong Kong is bearish on Apple. And I think that's because my view is it's not just about units moving up in terms of iPhone 17. You saw what happened when the Air went on sale in China. But this is really over the next 6 to 9 months. I think as a large cap, this could be the biggest outperformer, relative to the opportunity. Once I think they ultimately Google Gemini, that would probably be the AI partnership. And I think that is going to be the sort of aha moment for this story.
Hey, Dan, as a good tech analyst, you spend a lot of time in Asia, as you're doing right now. And I tell you, the China-U.S. trade discussions are really front and center for U.S. equity investors here. What are you hearing over there as it relates to just kind of trade tensions, tech in particular, going forward?
Look, I mean, there's tensions, but I do think investors are starting to maybe feel like there's going to be some sort of easing. I think that's the reality. I think when you look at the rare earth and some of the other sort of threats, I mean, our view, and I think most investors are look, you buy the tech winners as it ultimately plays out. And I think the bark's going to be worse than the bite. I mean, that continues to sort of be our view as this plays out. You don't get scared. This is not going to dent the AI revolution. I think cooler heads prevail. And it starts obviously with the summit between President Xi and Trump a few weeks.
So, Dan, just real quickly, following up on Apple here, is there a sense that Apple can, in fact, get some AI wind in its sail at some point, or is this a ship that maybe has sailed for Apple?
Look, I mean, obviously we've talked about on the program so much. I don't think the ship sailed. I think the best that ever happened to Apple was the Google win the DOJ suit, because that's going to now clear the way for Apple and Google to ultimately head down the path from an AI partnership with Gemini. And that's going to be the game changer for Apple. It's not going to come internally.
Dan, I have too short a visit. Love to get you back into the studio. Try to fly safe and get some sleep on the Gulf Stream. Dan Ives is with Wedbush. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Surveillance coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
We security to Brown University. Wendy Schiller with us for too short a visit. Wendy, what's it like when a faculty wins a Nobel Prize in economics? What was it like when you heard that Professor Howard had taken part of the Nobel Prize?
Well, it was great for Brown University. We are not accustomed to having a lot of our faculty be contenders or win Nobel Prizes. So it's a marker, and it's we have a strong economics department. Our president is an economist, and so we were thrilled and really thrilled about that.
Your turn is next year. Wendy, what does the Congress do? Whatever our listeners and viewers' politics, there's a primal scream, legislature, get your act together. How do they do that in a Wendy Schiller textbook?
Well, Congress in the last 10, 15 years has figured out when they really have to get it done, they get it done. Nobody's feeling the pressure to get it done because they keep carving out major expenses like the military. Now Trump says, oh, well, we found some money. They're going to get paid this week. Now they're talking apparently about carving out essential federal employees and finding money to pay them. Now, what most people don't know is that the President of the United States does have flexibility to move money around in the federal government, in the executive branch. And even though Congress appropriates the money, if you can prove that it's for the general welfare, that's a clause in the Constitution, then you can move money around. And so they're starting at the executive level, at least under Trump, to say, well, who can we cover that is otherwise going to generate a lot of backlash? And they started with the military. Now they're thinking about essential workers, think TSA, air traffic controllers. So if you're carving out so many sectors of the government that will not be affected by the shutdown, the pressure on Congress to come to the table just gets less and less.
So is there any value in people like me sitting back and saying, who's paying the price here? Who's to blame here? Who should really be the adult in the room and get stuff back to the table? Because it doesn't feel like there's that much pressure this time around.
Well, the Democrats are walking a fine line, right? They succeeded in holding their ranks to make sure that everybody in America got news that their health insurance premiums are going to go up. And the people who are eligible for Obamacare tax subsidies to help with those premiums, they just learned that they're going to it's much more expensive, but they've been modifying that with tax breaks. So they managed to hold. So that's a winning point for them, which means the Republicans are going to be under pressure to extend those tax breaks. However, the things that really get affected by a shutdown are discretionary spending, and those programs are typically designed and promoted by Democrats. They're things the government does for people that the Republicans may not be interested in. So the longer a shutdown goes, and the more of those employees who are furloughed, and that money doesn't go out the door, that hurts some of the Democrats' policy priorities.
Okay, Henry Olsen's writing in the Washington Post about the Democrat Marjorie Taylor Greene, all fired up about the shutdown. I'm kidding, folks. Our Southern Republican. Professor Schiller, is Marjorie Greene on the president's side?
No, Marjorie Taylor Greene's on Marjorie Taylor Greene's side. And she's proven over and over again to be pretty savvy when it comes to these things. We've also seen people who are not typically in the news, Republicans who come from districts that are red, states that are red, lots of federal employees in those districts. Think of national parks. Think of the western part of this country. There are a lot of people who are in those red Republican states that work for the government that are furloughed now. And that's going to come back to really start to haunt Republicans. So this is the thing that the Trump administration, you have John Thune, the majority leader of the United States Senate, begging the president for far farm subsidies for loans for payment because China's not buying soybeans. Right? He's from South Dakota. So when you think about that, there are lots of ways now that the Republicans are starting to feel more heat, not necessarily from a shutdown, but from Trump policies, and they don't seem to have a lot of leverage with this administration.
Professor, too short a visit. We love to speak to you every time. Next week, let's do it again. From the Nobel Prize-winning Brown University, it is Wendy Schiller.
This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Listen live each weekday, 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn, and the Bloomberg Business app. You can also watch us live every weekday on YouTube and always on the Bloomberg Terminal.